Consider the relationship 9r plus 2t equals 18. Write the relationship as a function r is equal to f of t. That means they want you to take this equation here and solve it for r. 9r plus 2t equals 18. All right, so the first thing I need to get rid of is the 2t. So I'm going to subtract 2t from both sides. Cancels out on the left, leaving you with the 9r. And on the right, you have two ways you can write this. You can write it 18 minus 2t, or I can put the minus 2t first and then the plus 18. This is going to be a linear function, so I'm just kind of used to putting things in the mx plus b form, if you guys remember that. So I put my negative 2t first, but it didn't clarify that, so you can write it 18 minus 2t if you want, but that's the way I did it. And then next, I'm going to divide off this 9, so that cancels, leaving me with just the r. But what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And you have to do it to every single term. It's like distributing the division. Now obviously 9 does not divide into 2 evenly. So I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. But since it is a negative divided by a negative, I can at least call it a positive 2/9 t. And then when I look at this problem, I'm seeing it as a positive 18 divided by a negative 9. And a positive divided by a negative makes it a negative, so I'm going to put a subtraction sign there, 2. Now, when you put it in functional notation, that means they want it all in terms of one variable. So instead of saying r equals 2/9 t minus 2, they're going to say f of t, because r is a function of t. So that's why over here you've got f of t equals, and then I would simply, type in 2/9 t minus 2. And that's that answer. Part B asks you to evaluate f of negative 9. Okay, so I've erased all that. Here's the function again. All you have to do to calculate f of negative 9 is remove the t and substitute a negative 9. And now all you have to do is simplify all of this stuff according to order of operations. Multiplication would come before your subtraction. So when you take 2/9 times a negative 9, it's a positive times a negative, which is going to make it a negative. But this 9 is actually going to cancel out that 9, because technically that 9 is really over a 1. So they can cross cancel out. And I'm just going to be left with a negative 2 here, minus this 2 back there. And negative 2 minus 2 is a negative 4. And that's the answer that goes right here. Now when you get to part C, this one tells you what f of t equals. F of t equals the 12. So I'm going to take this 12 right here, and it's going to go right here in place of f of t, the whole thing. Take out the f of t and put a 12 right there. And then you have to solve for t, because it does say right here t is equal to what? Well, to solve for t, I am going to add the 2 to both sides. Cancels out here. 12 plus 2 is 14, and that's equal to the 2/9 t. Now, since t is being multiplied onto, you're literally multiplying it onto 2/9. So your gut's probably saying, well, divide by 2/9, which is what you should do, but It looks kind of funky, doesn't it? 14 over a 2/9. That's what they call a complex fraction, when you have a fraction within a fraction. But writing it like this, I can also write it like this. 14 divided by 2/9. And if you remember anything about fractions, when you divide, you change it from division to multiplication and change the number you're dividing by to its reciprocal. So instead of dividing by 2/9, I'm multiplying times 9/2. And then the 14 is really like 14 over 1, so I can cross cancel 2 into itself once, up into 14 7 times. So 7 times 9 is 63 over 1, which is just 63. So my answer over here is 63. And that's how it's done.